This video is part of Perfect Competition. In it, I will discuss how a firm in a perfectly competitive market chooses its output in the short run. How do perfectly competitive firms maximize their profit in the short run? Like any other firm in the short or the long run, perfectly competitive firms in the short run maximize their profit by choosing to produce the quantity at which marginal revenue equals marginal cost. In a perfectly competitive market, equilibrium price is the marginal revenue. Therefore, they choose to produce the quantity at which marginal cost equals the market price. Let me explain why price equals marginal revenue. To understand this, first recall that each firm in a perfectly competitive market acts as if it faces a horizontal demand curve. This demand curve is horizontal at the equilibrium price set by the interaction of market supply and market demand. Because each firm is only one firm out of many firms, selling an identical product to many buyers, if any one firm tries to increase its price above the equilibrium price, then no consumer will buy from that firm. This means demand is perfectly elastic because if the price goes up any amount, then consumers will respond as much as they can by reducing their quantity demanded to zero. Now let me explain why a horizontal demand curve at the market price means that price equals marginal revenue. One way to explain this is to construct a simple chart. Suppose that the market equilibrium price, called P star, equals $10. When demand is horizontal, that means that each firm acts as if it can sell any quantity it wants to and still charge a price per unit of $10. For example, if the market price is 10 and the firm sells 1 unit, its total revenue is 1 times 10 or $10. If the firm wants to sell a second unit, it can still charge a market price of $10 and so earn a total revenue of 2 times 10 or $20. If it wants to sell a third unit, it can still charge the market price of $10 and so earn a total revenue of $30. Marginal revenue is the additional revenue generated from selling an additional unit. Here, when the firm sells the second unit, total revenue goes from 10 to 20, which is an addition of 10. When the firm sells the third unit, total revenue goes from 20 to 30, again an addition of 10. For every additional unit of output that the firm sells, the additional revenue is $10. Price is the marginal revenue. Another way of explaining this is to look at this more mathematically. Total revenue is price times quantity. In a perfectly competitive market, this price is a constant. Price is a constant set by the interaction of market supply and market demand. Therefore, since price is constant, when we take the derivative of total revenue as part of taking the derivative of profit, the derivative of a constant price times quantity with respect to quantity ends up being just price. So, in maximizing profit, by taking the derivative of profit with respect to Q and setting that derivative to zero, we end up with price minus marginal cost equals zero, which means price equals marginal cost. In summary, in a perfectly competitive market, marginal cost equals the market price. This is because marginal cost equaling price is equivalent to the profit maximizing condition that marginal cost equals marginal revenue, because in perfect competition, marginal revenue equals price. Remember that after determining which quantity it will produce if it stays open in the short run, a firm then decides whether to stay open at all and produce this quantity or instead shut down. The stay open versus shut down rule was stay open if total revenue more than pays the variable or avoidable cost, and shut down if the total revenue does not even cover the variable or avoidable cost. As long as a firm's revenue more than pays the costs that the firm could otherwise avoid by shutting down, leaving some revenue to at least pay part of the fixed cost, the cost that remains if the firm shuts down or stays open, the firm should stay open. Next, I will show you what this looks like graphically. But in order to put this graphically on the same graph with marginal revenue and price, I'm going to look at the shutdown rule using averages. For example, the firm will stay open if its total revenue, which equals the price set by the market times quantity, is more than enough to cover its variable cost. I'm going to divide both sides through by the firm's quantity. These two quantities cancel each other out, leaving me with just price on the left side, and on the right-hand side, average variable cost. Price here is average revenue. So the firm should stay open if average revenue, which equals price, is more than enough to cover its average variable cost, and the firm should shut down if average revenue, which equals price, is less than the average variable cost. Let's consider this graphically. Again, first the firm, if it's going to stay open, will choose to produce the quantity at which marginal revenue, which equals price, equals marginal cost. This is because if it's going to stay open, it's going to choose to maximize profit. On both graphs, I show Q star, the profit maximizing quantity, at the intersection of marginal cost and marginal revenue, or where marginal cost equals price. Next, the firm will decide whether or not to stay open. It will stay open if at this quantity, average revenue, which also equals price, is more than enough to cover average variable cost. Here on the left, I show a situation where at Q star, average revenue or price is more than average variable cost. This firm will therefore stay open. Its average revenue is more than enough to pay its average variable cost, so the firm has some leftover revenue to put towards its fixed cost that it would otherwise have to entirely pay if it shut down. On the right, we see an opposite situation. Now at the firm's profit maximizing quantity, average revenue is less than average variable cost. This firm will therefore shut down. Its average revenue is not even enough to cover its average variable cost, so it will make an even bigger loss by staying open. It should just shut down and incur the fixed cost.